Hi everyone, Happy New Year. Let's talk about the 100 books I read in 2025. Um, I cannot believe that I read 100 books last year. It was a personal goal that I set for myself. That's just something that I've always wanted to do, but I literally will never ever do that again. I think it got a little bit overwhelming at certain points, but nonetheless, I am still grateful that it's something I was able to accomplish, and I found some really incredible books last year because of that whole challenge. So let's get into the recap. The first book that I want to talk about is Down the Drain by Julia Fox. This was the first book that I finished in 2025. I don't usually rate memoirs, so this one isn't going to have a rating, but I will say if you are just so interested and intrigued by who Julia Fox is as a person and a pop culture icon and how she kind of like forged her way into like cultural consciousness the way she seemingly came out of nowhere, I think you're really going to appreciate her memoir. She's been through a lot, so definitely check the trigger warnings because she has been through some incredibly dark stuff, but I just love her, and so I think if you love her too, you're gonna really enjoy her memoir. The next book that I finished in 2025 was The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. I just love Kristen Hanna. I feel like she is such a great like entry point into historical fiction, and I think just like reading in general, I think her books are so beautifully written, but they're also simply written, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think her writing is very easy to understand and very engaging. This book follows Lenny and her parents as they move to the middle of nowhere in Alaska and just kind of all the trials that they have to face. So again, if you like a really emotional read, I would definitely recommend that one. I lent this book to a coworker and she also really loved it, so I definitely think it's a great recommendation, and this one got 4.7 stars from me. The next book that I want to talk about is Who's That Girl by Eve. This was Eve's memoir. Eve was like a rapper in like the 90s, early 2000s. I really didn't know who she was or much about her. I think I was just looking for a really quick audiobook at the time. But again, I think it's one of those things where if you like celebrity memoirs, if you're a fan of Eve, you're going to enjoy this book. It was actually I listened to the whole thing. And it was actually pretty short and so easy to listen to. She narrates it herself and very, very engaging. And that one also got no rating. The next book that I read was Big Swiss by Jen Beagin. I honestly would just recommend this book if you're a big fan of literary fiction. I like literary fiction. It's not my favorite genre, but this book was definitely very entertaining. I gave it 4 stars. I just think that if you like reading about characters who are just kind of like insane and kind of just, I don't know, just like weird, just like little like weird female main characters, I think you're really gonna like this book. This book basically just follows this woman who works as like a transcriber for a therapist, so she kind of types out all of his therapy sessions, and through her transcribing one of his sessions, like she falls in love with like one of his patients, and so very, very interesting. And so I definitely do recommend that book if you're into literary fiction. And that one got 4 stars. The next book that I read was unfortunately a 2-star read. It was Caraval. I really wanted to read this book because I think the series is called The Ballad of Never After. I really wanted to read that series, but I heard that Caraval was kind of the series that came before it. So I wanted to read Caraval, and unfortunately, I just found this book to be really boring. Like, I just didn't find it super interesting or intriguing, and so this book got 2 stars. I didn't finish the series. Maybe I'll read The Ballad of Never After, whatever that series is called, but to be honest, I feel like I'm a little bit put off of this author's writing if I really did not enjoy Caraval, and so I don't really recommend that book. The next book that I read was Between Us by Maria McFarlane. Again, I think if you're a lit fic girl, you're really going to enjoy her books. I really like this one. But I will say it's not one of those books that I think about often. If I'm not mistaken, I think this book is about a woman who has been with like her boyfriend for a really long time, and he just got his big break like what's it called? He just got his big break, like writing a TV show or creating his own TV show. But when they gather with a group of friends to watch the TV show, she realizes that the show is basically centered around very personal things that she's told him. And so of course their relationship implodes, the whole friend group implodes, and so you're kind of following that journey. I really like Mari McFarlane's writing, and I definitely would read a lot more of her books. They're marketed as romance, but they're not really romance novels. I feel like they're more just like lit fic with a subplot of romance, which is really nice. But it's just, I just honestly find the descriptions of her books so funny because I feel like they're marketed as these rom-coms and they're really not. Between Us got 4 stars from me. I really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend. And then the last book that I read in January was Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. That one got 4.25 stars. This book is a part of the When in Rome series. I really like this series. It follows it follows 4 siblings. Each sibling gets their own book. And so this book followed Emily. She's a teacher, and it's enemies to lovers because she has this rival teacher, but somehow they end up like just spending a lot of time together. And I honestly, this book, out of the 3 books in the series that I've read so far, this one was my favorite one. 4.25 stars. All the other books I liked, but like I wasn't in love with them. But this book I thought was really funny, and just I was really rooting for the couple. I thought it was so sweet. And so I definitely recommend this one if you just want like a cozy, cute, like funny romance. And so getting into the books that I read in February, the first book that I read in February was The Master of Me by Keke Palmer. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I guess I would say this is like Keke Palmer's version of like a self-help book. She gives a lot of really great advice in this book, but she backs it up with like anecdotes and just like, you know, stories from her personal life. But it's strange. I don't usually love self-help, and of course I think people tend to like not take celebrities super seriously, but I actually do think there's like some pretty good insights in this book. And so I think you know, if you're a fan of Keke Palmer, I would definitely recommend picking this up. The next book that I read was Real by Kennedy Ryan. This book was a little bit of a disappointment. I gave it 3 stars. The premise was really intriguing to me. It's basically about this like actress who's on a movie set. It's her big break, and she ends up like having a relationship with the director. For me personally, I just felt like the relationship was a little too lust driven, and I didn't really like the power imbalance in the relationship with like her being the actress and like him being the director. I didn't love that. And so for that reason, I gave it 3 stars. I think there's another book in this series that's coming out that I do want to read. And so we'll see if I like that one a little bit better. But yeah, this one just like wasn't my favorite, which was a little bit of a bummer as like a Kennedy Ryan fan. But I think that if you like her books and you like movies that take place in Hollywood, you would enjoy Real. The next book that I read was The Love Lyric by Christina Forrest. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I really loved it. This is the last book in like a series following 3 sisters. I just love these 3 sisters so much, and this book follows Iris. She's the oldest sister. I was so excited for her to get her own book. She's a single mom, and she works for like a cosmetic company, and they're doing this campaign with like a big R&B artist, and so she kind of has to work really closely with him, and so the relationship kind of follows the 2 of them. But I thought it was so sweet. It wasn't my favorite out of the series, but come on, it's 4.5 stars. So if a 4.5 star like book is my least favorite, then I think this whole series is definitely worth reading. And so sweet. Love the book. Would definitely reread. Highly recommend. And highly recommend Christina Forrest as an author as well. I love the way she writes her books. They're perfectly paced. So definitely check her out. The next book that I read was Finding Me by Viola Davis. I liked her memoir. I feel strange saying this because like I didn't give it a rating, but I don't know, maybe it was just because I don't think maybe I was at the right place in my life to read that book. But I guess for me, it kind of just felt a little bit like, I don't know, like I just couldn't connect to it like very well. And so I found her story to be incredibly empowering. She's been through a lot. I think if you're a fan of Viola Davis, you would definitely love and appreciate this memoir. If I'm being totally honest, I know this is so scandalous, I have never really watched anything that Viola Davis has been in. Of course, I've heard of her as an actress, but I'm not super familiar with her work, and so I wasn't necessarily reading this from like, oh my god, I'm such a fan. I just heard this memoir was really good, and it was good. I'm not gonna say that it wasn't. I just think I personally couldn't connect to it in the way that I thought I was going to. The next book that I read was X's and O's. This was a really cute rom-com. This is also a part of a like interconnected series. This book follows Tara. I believe she's a nurse, and she just ends up having this like friends to lovers relationship with like this firefighter. I gave this 4.5 stars. I really loved it. I felt like it was truly friends to lovers. I was rooting for them. Loved Tara as a character. She was so funny, so entertaining. And so I think if you're looking for just like a light-hearted rom-com, I think you're really going to like that book. Then the next book that I read was The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. This was my first James Baldwin book. It definitely won't be my last. I want to read so much more of his work. This book, incredible. I recommend everyone read this book. It's super short, but I just think it had such great and powerful insights on just like race in America, what it's like to be Black in America, just really challenging, just like the status quo, and just like I feel like reading this book, if you are someone who's committed to just learning more about the Black experience, if you're a Black person and you just want to read more commentary about that kind of thing, I think you're really going to appreciate it. He really pushes back, and really just like, I feel like you read this book and you discover just how deep and horrific of an issue racism is. And I just loved it. I was underlining, making so many comments. Definitely everyone read this book, 5 stars. The next book that I read was Transcendent Kingdom by Yaa Gyasi. I read Homegoing by her, I think it was last year, and I really loved that book, and I really love this book as well. This book basically follows this young grad student, and she grew up very Christian, and she's a scientist, and she's kind of questioning and working through her beliefs and her relationship with God. She kind of fell away from the faith because she has just experienced so much family trauma and tragedy. And this book really is just like an exploration of that. I love books that explore religion, questioning religion, like family, like dynamics, and the like the I don't want to say like I love reading books about horrible like family trauma, but I just think it's one of those things where it's like everyone goes through so much, and I just love books that kind of explore those dynamics and how it's related to religion and questioning things. I gave this book 5 stars. I thought it was incredible, and I would definitely recommend everyone check this book out as well. And then the last book that I listened to in February was The Crash by Freida McFadden. I like Freida. I think her books are just really, really good for anyone who just like wants a really quick, engaging read. I think this book, if I'm not mistaken, was about a young woman who gets into a car accident, but if I'm not mistaken, I think she's pregnant, and a family goes and helps her, and gives her like a place to stay, but of course like it becomes even more sinister, and I think the twist actually really did get me, so I gave this book 3 stars. Again, just like really fun, nice, enjoyable audiobook to listen to, nothing like super deep, but that's how Freida's books are, and I will always love her for it. And then I'm so excited to talk about this book. This is my favorite book of 2025. 5 stars, 6 stars, 7 star read, The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I loved this book. I just honestly think I was reading that book literally at like the most perfect time in my life. But literally when I was reading this book, I was like in the middle of like an ice dance hyperfixation, and this book follows 2 ice dancers, and they are very like on again, off again. They have this very dramatic, tumultuous relationship, but it literally just follows their relationship, their ice dancing careers. It's told like half novel, half like documentary style, so you get little like commentary from like other characters who also were just like a witness to their incredibly volatile relationship. Fantastic. If you love books that are so dramatic, drama, headstrong, powerful female main characters, I highly recommend. Even if you don't like those things, read the book. It's incredible. I literally cannot recommend it enough. I tell everyone to read this book. This book, fantastic, so entertaining, so engaging. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Favorite book of 2025. 1000%. Not even a question. 1000%. That was my favorite book in 2025. And then I read The Assassin's Blade. This was actually a reread. And 2025 was the year that I slowly started to reread the Throne of Glass series. The last time I read it was in like middle school, high school. And so it's been a really long time. And it's so interesting to see like the resurgence and how popular it's gotten lately. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember reading those books as a kid. And so I wanted to reread them. So I read The Assassin's Blade. This is kind of like the novella. So kind of takes place before the events that happen in the whole Throne of Glass series. 4 stars, really good. And for me, that's a big deal because I really don't read fantasy. I don't love fantasy novels. And so I think for me to rate a fantasy 4 stars, amazing. I think Throne of Glass is really the only fantasy series that like I kind of enjoy. And so that was The Assassin's Blade. The next book that I read in March was The Many Lives of Mama Love. This was a memoir. Again, no rating. It basically follows this white lady, and I say white because I do feel like her race is important when you talk about these kind of stories, but basically she severely misused substances. She was a drug addict. And she ends up going to jail, and she kind of talks about like her journey of how she ended up in jail, like her relationship with her kids, how it's affected her family, and kind of just like the journey of getting released from jail and trying to reintegrate back into society and just how difficult it is. I feel like this book really just shows you how messed up and how much reform is needed in our prison industry and just like our entire justice like system as well. And so and the prison and jail system, it's all horrible. It needs reform. And I think this book was really interesting, and I do wish she touched on this a little bit more. It's just like the privileges that she received, like just as a white woman going through these things. She did mention it, she did bring it up, but I just wish we got a little more exploration of that, because we all know that these kind of things come into play and affect sentencing and your ability to reintegrate. And so I do wish she touched on that a little bit more. But overall, I really enjoyed this novel, and I would recommend anyone read it as well. Then I read My Body by Emily Ratajkowski. I gave this 4 stars. I don't know why. I mean, it's a book that I've wanted to read for a while, and I appreciated it. I feel like looking back, I would maybe just give it 3 stars. I don't know. Like, I appreciated her commentary and what she was trying to do. I don't think this is supposed to be an engaging book. I mean, I found her stories interesting, and they're important short stories to tell. And I appreciate her vulnerability. I don't know, like I just couldn't connect to this one, and maybe I just hyped it up too much in my head, but I thought it was good. Like I thought it was good, but I don't know if I would like read it again. And I don't really remember much about the book either. It wasn't like particularly memorable for me. Then I read Begin Again. I gave it 3.5 stars. This is a YA romance. I don't typically read YA, but at this time I really just wanted just something fun to read. This book basically just follows this girl who's on like a college campus, and you're really just seeing her like just, it's like a coming of age story kind of. I thought it was just so sweet to read. I think it made me like nostalgic for my own college experience. I didn't have much of a college experience, and so I feel like reading this book was like, oh, maybe this is what like college would have looked like for me if like I actually had a traditional, you know, college experience. And so I thought this book was like really sweet and cute. If you want just like a fluffy fun read, I would recommend this book. Then I read The Catch. This book is a part of the same series as X's and O's. I gave it 3 stars. Definitely my least favorite. This one follows like the friend of the person in X's and O's. She's a fashion influencer, and she goes on this like trip to Canada. and she ends up like staying at this like inn with this family, and you kind of follow the romance with like one of the family members. I don't know, like I just, again, I don't really remember much about this book. It wasn't super memorable. I guess read it if the premise sounds like even somewhat intriguing, but I don't know. For some reason, I just found it a little bit boring. I just didn't love our male main character and their dynamic, and so it was just a 3-star. And the last book that I read in March was Hillbilly Elegy by JD Vance. I read it because one of the girls in book club like really loved this book. I'm not a JD Vance fan, but I was just like very interested in hearing about his story and kind of how he ended up like where he did. And that's why I give it 5 stars, because he truly has an incredible story. Like, I think his story is very empowering, very inspiring. Just hearing how he grew up so poor in an unstable family environment to like going into the military and then to law school, I found that to be very inspiring. Like, that's a truly amazing story. But it was just so interesting to me reading this book, because hearing about the stuff that he's gone through and the stuff that he's talked about, I'm like, how do we end up to where you are now? Like, how do you go, how is that your life story and you end up in a situation with like the values and beliefs that you have now? I have no idea. But my unbiased like review, personal feelings about JD Vance aside, this book was actually really good, and so I do recommend reading it. Even if you're not a fan of his, I think you can take something from his story, and I think if anything, I think it's just worth just hearing about his background and kind of his journey to where he's ended up now as well. And then the next book that I read, we're going into April reads now, was Bachelor Nation. This book was just like, again, just like a fun audiobook that I wanted to listen to. It was fine. It's written by like this journalist who used to report on The Bachelor, and so she kind of, has some like insider information, or at least that's what I thought. I mean, it's hard because I know that like Bachelor producers and stars, a lot of them are under contract, so you can't get a ton of like deep dive inside tea, I guess. And I guess I thought that's what this book would be more of. I thought this book would kind of be more of like an expose on The Bachelor, because The Bachelor and The Bachelorette is my guilty pleasure. But it really wasn't. I think it more just talks about just like the dynamics of the show and like maybe some personal interactions and like outside interviews, but it wasn't like it definitely wasn't what I was expecting it to be. I gave it 3 stars. I think it was fine, but it wasn't really my favorite. Then the next book that I read was The Fall Risk. I gave it 4.7 stars. This is just a cute little novella by Abby Jimenez. Again, I just wanted such a quick, little romance novella to, just, I don't know what the word is, like slump. Like, I don't know if I was like entering a reading slump kind of around that time, but again, I just wanted something really quick and fun to read. So that was The Fall Risk. And then I read Dear Dolly. I gave this book 3 stars. This is by Dolly Alderton. I really wanted to read this book because I read Everything I Know About Love by her a few years ago, and that was a 5-star read for me. Dolly used to be like an advice columnist, and so this book is kind of just like an amalgamation, a compilation of all the kind of advice columns that she's written and the advice that she's given over the years. But I don't know, I think for me it just wasn't like super interesting. It wasn't really my favorite. I think this book is more for like die hard fans of Dolly Alderton who just want to read whatever she puts out. But for me, it wasn't really for me. Then I read Deep Cuts by Holly Brinkley. This book was a 3.5 star for me. It wasn't what I was expecting. This book is basically about this college student. She is not a musician, but she loves like critiquing music, and she ends up having this like strange-ish relationship with like a leader of like a band. And she is basically, what the description says is that she kind of helps him, like she kind of critiques his music to kind of help him make his music better. I thought that this book would kind of show that journey, but to be honest, it's like this book doesn't really show them together very much at all. in fact, if anything, it focuses just more on the girl's story. So I just feel like the description is a little misleading. It was still interesting, but I thought it was going to be a little bit Daisy Jones and the Six-esque of you're following their journey together and creating amazing music. And this book really wasn't like that. Like, there's not really a lot on them creating music together, like, at all, in my opinion. But it was still just like a fun book to read. Oh, and then let's talk about the book I read in April, which was Fourth Wing. I read Fourth Wing just because so many people were reading it, and I wanted to just see what it was about. 2 stars. This book was such a disappointment. I have another video where I recap the books I read in April, and in that video I kind of go on a Fourth Wing rant. So I'm not going to go into a rant in this video. I just feel like this book literally made no sense. I feel like this book follows like this girl who goes to like a dragon school, and you're kind of following her and her relationship with her friends and the romance. But I just feel like the dynamics of the school made no sense. I just, there were just so many things that I just felt like could have been done so much better in this book, and so I don't really think I'll be continuing the series. The girls in my book club keep telling me to reread Fourth Wing. I'm just not there yet. Maybe, but I just feel like it would be a little bit of a waste of time because I just feel like I already know I don't love this book. But again, and it was definitely disappointing because, you know, I mentioned earlier I don't read a lot of fantasies, so this was kind of gonna be a little bit of a foray into the fantasy genre, and this kind of just killed that for me. I was like, Throne of Glass is probably the only fantasy series I'm gonna like read and actually enjoy at this point, because reading Fourth Wing was just such a disappointment. Oh, and then I read another just like cute little novella, The Exception to the Rule. Also got 4.75 stars. Again, just a cute romance novella. Nothing really much to say about it. I just think these are really good if you just kind of want to, you know, read something quick and something fun. Definitely check this one out. Then I read I'll Never Change My Name by Valentin Shmarkovsky. I really enjoyed this memoir. This book is about Val's journey. He is a professional dancer on Dancing with the Stars. He was born in Ukraine and he immigrated to the United States as a child, and so you're kind of just following that journey, how he grew into a professional ballroom dancer. He talks a lot about his seasons and his relationships on Dancing with the Stars. Dancing with the Stars is my favorite show of all time, and Val is one of my favorite pro dancers on the show, so I really enjoyed hearing his story. And I thought this book was so sweet too, because he talks a lot about how his older brother Max, who's also a pro on the show, just like really guided him, and I feel like this book was like partially Max's story, not just Val, and you can tell that family means so much to him, and so I really enjoyed this memoir, and I think even if you're not a fan of the show, you would still really like it. It was definitely very entertaining. Then I read the Griffin Sisters' Greatest Hits. This book was 4 stars. I love novels centered around entertainment, and this book follows 2 sisters, the Griffin Sisters. They were like a popular music act in like the early 2000s, but then they split, so you're kind of getting the story of like past and present of like their journey and their rise, but also where they are now. And there's a really big event that happened that broke up the group, and one of the sisters is off the grid. I feel like this book really touched on a lot of different topics like anxiety, body dysmorphia, fat phobia, like those kind of topics, and I feel like it was done pretty well, and so I really did enjoy the book. Didn't love the ending, and one of the sisters' daughters is also like a pretty prominent, she has like her own little storyline in the book, but I just feel like her journey wasn't as full circle as I would have liked it to be, so I gave it 4 stars, but it was still really good. And then I read From Here to the Great Unknown. This is another memoir that also just got no rating. This is about Lisa Marie Presley. So this is her memoir, but she didn't get to finish it before she died. So her daughter, Riley Keough, kind of fills in some of the gaps that her mom didn't finish. And so it's kind of, it's kind of written by both of them. It's both of their stories. I really enjoyed it. I was primarily interested in this because I loved Riley Keough and Daisy Jones and the Six, but I thought you know, this book was a beautiful novel. Lisa Marie Presley has been through a lot, so it was cool hearing her story, especially since I didn't know much about her. But yeah, I recommend. I heard everyone say this book was really good, and I enjoyed it. Oh, and then we're probably, okay, this is gonna be like the lowest rated book. Or no, this is not the lowest rated book. One of the lowest rated books from my entire year of reading, and that's Magnolia Parks. I hated this book. I could not get into the couple at all. I know I said when talking about the favorites that I love drama in books. That does not apply when I'm talking about Magnolia Parks. I just think the drama was so stupid. The back and forth was so stupid. These are adults we're dealing with, acting like little babies, little rich brats. Like, I couldn't. Again, I kind of went on a rant on this book in one of my other videos, but I just can't with this book. 1.25 stars. So many of the girls in book club who love this book were like, you need to read the second book to really get into the series. And I actually started listening to a little bit of the second book, but I just couldn't go through with it. Like, and I also just feel like if you're a series and you're telling me it doesn't get good till books 2 or 3, that's not a good series. It's supposed to hook you from the start. So if you're reading a book and it's not engaging you from the beginning, it's not worth reading to me. I'm not gonna wait until book 3 or 4 to like really start getting into it. No, absolutely not. May, thank God, was a much better reading month. I started off May with a Hunger Games reread. 4.5 stars. Really loved the book. May was definitely my Hunger Games era. Very Hunger Games heavy. I think I read all the books in the series, all the Hunger Games book in the universe in May. But yeah, I haven't read this book since I was a child, so it was really cool just getting like a refresher on the books and then being able to like watch most of the movies for the first time after reading them. And so yeah, The Hunger Games, 4.5 stars, YA dystopia, very eerily relevant to our world today, but I loved that book. And then the next book that I read was A Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. I love this book. I have such a fond place in my heart for it. I mean, God, this is one of those books where I just feel like you just have to read it and experience it for yourself. I don't want to say too much about it. I've had this book on my TBR for forever, and this book was rated the book of the year for so many different places a few years ago, and I can see why. This book is almost like, the best way I could describe it is like, this book is like a story, but like the kind of story that you pass on from generations to generations. Like, I felt like I was reading like a fable, like one of those stories that you tell around the dinner table of like, guys, this is what happened, this is a big story, these are all the different characters, and you're introduced to so many different characters, but it all comes together so perfectly. 5 stars. I loved it. Everyone read this book. Fantastic. And I read What Should Have Been Ours. This is a romance novel, and this was written by Faith Pinkay, one of the girls in book club. 4 stars. Really sweet, very emotional romance. I was sobbing at the end. And so I don't want to say too much about it, but this is definitely like childhood friends to lovers, childhood like ex-lovers kind of rediscovering themselves, but there's also a lot of like tragedy and just it's very sad, but it is very good. And I think that if those kinds of romances are your cup of tea, you would really enjoy that book. And then I read Careless People by Sarah Wynne Williams. I gave this book 4 stars. I listened to the audio. I found this book very entertaining. I gave it 4 stars because I think towards the middle, I kind of lost a little bit of interest before it picked back up again. But this book is literally just like a Facebook expose and just how toxic and just terrible that company is, and terrible how they treat their employees and how they manipulate things in our society and our culture, and how there's no like regulations, and just like how the people who work at Facebook, the big people in charge, like they just don't care. It's just all about power for them. And so I think if you are interested in that sort of thing, you would definitely really like it. Definitely a lot of people talking about it earlier this year, and I thought it was good. And I read Catching Fire. I gave that 4 stars. I think oddly, like, I gave it lower than The Hunger Games, but I think, and I'm trying to figure out why, because I actually do think Catching Fire is probably like my favorite one. So I don't know why I rated it lower, but nevertheless, you're just picking up after the Hunger Games. I mean, again, YA dystopia. Everyone just read this series if you haven't and just experience it for yourself because it's really good. And then I read Mockingjay. I primarily listened to this one. I gave it 3.5 stars. I remembered not loving Mockingjay as a kid, and it kind of holds up. Like, it was still good, but definitely my least favorite out of the three. And then I read Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. I love this book. This is another one of those books that's just so devastatingly emotional, but you're basically just following two best friends, Tully and Kate, and you're just kind of seeing them grow up together from like middle school to high school to college, jobs in adulthood, having families. They're two opposites, but you see kind of like the good times, the bad times, and being friends and falling apart. This book also focuses a lot on like Kate's relationship with her daughter, which is very, very fraught. And I think those parts were hard to read, and I'm not a mother, but it just got me thinking about my relationship with my mom and just like my fear of like, oh my god, if I have a child, like, are they gonna hate me? It just focused on all of that. And so I don't know, like, this is just one of those books where it's like Kristen Hanna did it again. I loved it. It was beautiful. I think everyone should read that book. Then I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I gave that one 3.75 stars. I actually watched the movie. I think it was like right when it came out or around the time it came out in like 2024. Which was so out of character for me because I normally always feel like I have to read the book before watching the movie, but I watched the movie first. And I mean, I love the movie. Reading the book, I think it kind of did a little bit of a disservice watching the movie first, because when I was reading the book, like, of course there was stuff that the movie missed, but I felt like the movie was a lot more engaging, whereas reading the whole book, it just went a little bit more slower paced, and I still really enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but I just felt like, yeah, watching the movie first definitely did not do me any favors when reading this book, because I just kept thinking about just how quickly things progressed in the movie, and then this book just definitely felt a lot slower, and it was also very long. I feel like it was a little bit too long. But again, I think, of course, if you're a big fan of the Hunger Games, you're going to enjoy just all of the Hunger Games novels. And then I listened to A Well-Trained Wife. This is a novel about a woman's like journey through like Christian fundamentalism and how she got out of that. It's very, very heartbreaking. I find topics like that, again, just like topics exploring religion and just like extremely high control religious groups, very interesting. I'm so proud of the author. She is so strong. She is so tough. Like, I really, really appreciated her telling her story, and I think it definitely is a story that needs to be told more often, especially just like as a Christian myself. Like, it makes me so sad to hear people like her that have gone through this, because it's just not a reflection of like what true Christianity is at all. It's not supposed to be this like controlling group where a woman is like subservient to her husband and just there to service his every need and whim. And so definitely very heartbreaking and very interesting hearing how she kind of like got caught up in that, because it wasn't like she was necessarily raised in that way all the way. And so yeah, this book was definitely very, very interesting. And I think if you're interested in kind of those like religious cults and just like extremely high control religious groups, I think you'll like this book as well. And then the last book that I read in May was Sunrise on the Reaping. I primarily listened to this one as well. Really good, really good. 4 stars. I'm so excited for the movie to come out. This is Haymitch's story. Haymitch is Katniss and Peeta's mentor in like the original Hunger Games trilogy, and so he was a former Hunger Games contestant, and so you are literally kind of just like hearing his story through the games. Crazy, crazy stuff happening. Very, very emotional, very bizarre. And I think this book was really good commentary on like propaganda and just how things are twisted to fit a certain narrative. But again, really, really good book. And I will say though, reading this book, I literally was like, we do not need any more Hunger Games novels. So many people want novels from like other characters like Finnick and I don't know, just like other like side characters in the Hunger Games series, but I do feel like at a certain point it gets a little bit redundant because the format of the Hunger Games is pretty much the same. And so even though I found Sunrise on the Reaping interesting and fun to read, I do think I'm like, okay, like this is it. We do not need any more Hunger Games novels after that one. And so let's get into the books that I read in June. This is a sort of my summer of romance. For the past few years, I've kind of only been reading romance books in the summer, just because summer just like screams romance to me. I'm not gonna do that anymore. I'm not gonna do it this year, just because I think it definitely gives me a little bit of like romance fatigue. And I think it did put me in a little bit of a slump because I don't know, I just felt like there weren't as many great romance picks this year, but nevertheless, let's get into June. The first book that I read in June was The Wedding Dashers. I gave it 2 stars. A disappointing start, you know, but it basically follows this like these two people who are kind of like stuck, like their plane gets canceled, so they're stuck in their destination and they have to find a way to get to where they're going to go, so they travel together. I just found the book boring. I just found it boring. I donated it. I almost never unhaul books, but this is one of those books where I'm like, I really do not need this book on my shelf anymore. Then I read Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I gave it 4 stars. Not my favorite Emily Henry book, but this is definitely very reminiscent of like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's basically about these two writers who are competing to tell the story of like this very famous like socialite, and so you're kind of following their romance, but you're also following the socialite story, which two very interesting storylines, and I really like how they all came together. I like the twist at the end. Definitely just like a cute, like cozy read. Again, not my fave Emily Henry, but still really good. And then I listened to Curvy Girl Summer. I gave that book 4.25 stars. Really just entertaining. Like, I don't really know what it's about. It's just a romance novel. You're following this like curvy plus size girl navigating the dating scene and kind of the struggles that she is going through with that, but you get to see this relationship blossom, and see her journey as she's going on dates, trying to meet new guys, and so it was just really fun. Highly recommend everyone read it. And then I read Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. I gave this 4 stars. This was the third and final book in the Skyland series, which follows this trio of girlfriends. And this was Hendrix's novel. I liked her romance, I really did. But again, my least favorite out of all the books in the trilogy. I think Before I Let Go is my favorite one. But I loved hearing Hendrix's story. I love Hendrix as a character. I love how she's just like this girl boss. She doesn't want any kids, and she knows who she is. She knows what her values are, and she sticks to them. And I don't know, like, I felt just empowered reading her story, and I just thought it was really good. Again, read it. Read the whole series, because it's so amazing, and I'm so sad that this series is over. I just want her to keep writing more books so we can keep following the friends. Hendrix is my favorite character. I think she's the funniest one, and I just love her, so I really enjoyed reading her book. Then I read Plus Size Player. This is like part of the Curvy Girl Summer. Like, it's like an interconnected standalone following 3 friends in a friend group. So this follows Nina. She is the main character's, like, in Curvy Girl Summer's best friend. And you're kind of just following, like, again, her journey of finding love. She's like a plus size fashion influencer. And so I just really enjoyed reading this book. Very funny, very entertaining as well. I love the narrator of the audiobooks for both books as well. I think they just made the book so much more interesting and engaging. This book was definitely very spicy, which, I mean, good for them, but I just think if you don't love spice, you might not love this book, or if you don't mind reading spice or you just skip over it, then don't listen to the audio. Just like read the book so you can kind of just skip through the spice scenes and see how it ends, because I feel like listening to the audio, I was kind of just like, alright, I'm just waiting for this to be over, because like I don't know how far I should skip ahead. And so, but the book was definitely still super interesting. And the third friend in the trio, her book comes out this year, so I'm really excited to listen to that one as well. Oh, and then I read Audrey and Bash Are Just Friends, 4.25 stars. This was by Tia Williams. I love Tia Williams. She's an auto-buy author for me. I love all of her books. This follows Audrey, and Tia Williams has a very famous book, 7 Days in June, and the main character in 7 Days in June's daughter is called Audrey. So this is like following Audrey's romance story. It takes place in New York, and I just love any books that take place in New York City. And I don't know, this book was just so sweet. YA romance, but it was still like, it wasn't like corny, you know, and I felt like it was very relevant to how teenagers are like in this day and age, which I just thought it was so cute. And I think Tia Williams is hilarious. Like, this book was genuinely so funny, and just seeing all the pop culture references and just being able to relate to it, and to a certain extent, I mean, I just loved it. Like, I thought it was so, so good. And then I read It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. I gave it 3 stars. Looking back, I don't know why. I honestly think this is one of those books that I'm gonna give away, because I think looking back, I probably would give it lower. I mean, it was fine. It basically follows this like child actress, and she now works as like a producer in like movies, but she's trying to like pitch this idea for a movie, and she convinces her network to let her like track down this like super famous musician to like make a song for the movie, and she has to take one of her coworkers with her, but she doesn't really get along with him, so it's like enemies to lovers. I don't know, like, I think the book was fine. I don't think it was like particularly memorable, and it was just a little bit boring. So I mean, I think if you love Annabelle Monaghan, you'll probably like it, but this was my first book by her, and I wasn't super impressed, if I'm being honest. And then the last book that I read in June was Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I love Ali Hazelwood, but I will say I do think I love her earlier books. This book follows, like, definitely focuses more on like BDSM and like kinky culture, which I didn't love. Like, but I will say, everyone was saying this was like her spiciest book. It actually had less spice than I thought it was going to, if I'm being honest. And maybe not everyone shares that opinion, but I really do think this book could have been a lot spicier than what it was. Again, this is just like college romance. You're just following 2 athletes like having sex with each other, and then they fall in love, you know what I mean? So, but I like the love story. I think Ali Hazelwood writes like really funny characters, especially female main characters, and so I don't know, I just really like the book. I feel like it's hard to go wrong with Ali Hazelwood, because I feel like so many of her books follow the same format. You're gonna get a nerdy like STEM romance, because this definitely still had a STEM element to it. Definitely cameos from characters from her first book, The Love Hypothesis, which I loved. So yeah, just a fun little read, nothing crazy. The next book that I want to talk about was probably one of the biggest like shockers of 2025 for me, and that was Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. Honestly, I read all 6 of like Abby Jimenez's books before Say You'll Remember Me, and I all thought they were okay. So for me, this book was like Abby's last chance. And I feel like going into this book, knowing that it was like very like, I don't want to say like insta-lovey, but just like the attraction and the infatuation moved very, very fast. I think it helped me get in the right headspace, because I don't usually love that in books. But knowing that this book was about, I was able to enjoy it so much more, and I gave it 5 stars. I loved this book. I love these characters. I thought the romance was so sweet. I thought the things and the struggles they were going with were so real that they were going through. And so I love this book. Definitely my favorite Abby Jimenez read. And it definitely redeemed her in my eyes, because now whatever new release she has, like, I definitely will be checking out. Then I read The Love Haters by Catherine Center. I gave this book 2 stars. To be honest, this is kind of like killed Catherine Center for me, because I read The Bodyguard by her a few years ago, and I didn't love that book either. And so reading this one, I kind of was just like, okay, let me give it another chance, but I just found the book to be so boring. I didn't really like her female main character. I thought she was kind of immature. It basically follows this videographer who gets sent to Key West to kind of like take a recruiting video for like the Marines or the Coast Guard, I think. And so of course she ends up like getting into a relationship and falling in love with like with the like Coast Guard member that she's filming. And so I thought that sounded interesting, especially since it takes place in the Keys, which is like really close to where I live. But yeah, this book just like wasn't it. I don't know. I have like another book by Catherine Center on my physical TBR, and I'm like wondering if I should just like give it a chance or give it away, because I just don't really see myself loving this book. And then I listened to Tastes Like I don't want to mispronounce it, like Shakar by Nisha Sharma. I gave this book 3 stars. I listened to it. I thought it was fine, but it wasn't particularly memorable. This is also part of like an interconnected standalone that follows three friends. So this followed one of the friends. It's Indian representation, so I think if you're interested in that or you like that in books, then definitely check this out. But I thought it was okay. I thought it was like entertaining for what it was, but to be honest, I can't even really tell you very much as to what it was about. And then I bring it up too because I also listened to the third book, Marriage and Masti, in July as well. I gave that book 3.25 stars, but it was the same thing. Like, I really can't remember what those books were about, and they were just like, I guess, entertaining at the time that I listened to them. Then I read Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. I gave that book 3.75 stars. I liked it more than It's a Love Story for sure. I think, like, I realized, like, I don't think I'm the target audience for Annabelle Monaghan's books. I enjoyed it, you know, for what it was. Again, I gave it 3.75 stars. It's not a bad rating. I enjoyed it for what it was. But again, I also couldn't really tell you much about this book either. I think it follows a single mom who just got a divorce, so she's trying to find love after the divorce. And I thought it was cool. I just don't think I'm the target audience for it. Then I read Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. My mentality going into reading this book was definitely very toxic because I read a book by Tessa Bailey a few years ago that I just hated, and I heard a lot of people not loving this book and talking a lot of crap about it, so it was kind of a hate read, but I gave it 3 stars. I actually kind of enjoyed it a little bit. It was definitely very, very spicy. I don't want to judge, but there was like ass eating in this book, and I just don't know why that was necessary to include. But I actually thought the book was fun. Then I read Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan. I gave this book 4 stars. I think out of the Annabelle Monaghan books that I read, this was my favorite one. Again, I just don't think I'm the target audience. I feel like I gave it 4 stars because objectively is good, and I did enjoy the story. There's just something missing. I think maybe it's the humor. I feel like there's not a lot of humor in her books, and I just love reading just like rom-coms, and so I think that was just what was missing. I just feel like, I'm gonna say this, I think her books are just too mature for me. I just don't think I connect to it. And the romances as much as like some other novels where the books are more playful and fun, but I still enjoyed this one. And then the last book that I read was Problematic Summer Romance. This one was also by Ali Hazelwood, 3.75 stars. It follows the sister of the main character that was in her other book, Not in Love. I gave this book 3.75 stars because I found the book entertaining and funny. I just couldn't really root for the romance because there's just such a big age gap, and I don't love age gap romances. It's just a personal thing, and I feel like even just trying to give the romance a chance, I just couldn't really get into it. But I gave it 3.75 stars because reading the book overall was definitely super entertaining, and I really liked our female main character. So let's get into the books that I read in August. In August, I listened to Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. I gave it 3.5 stars. I really liked the narrator of this book. This book also takes place in New York City. It follows like this comedy writer, and she kind of ends up getting into this relationship with one of the actors that hosted the show, but it's very, very much a slow burn, but I really, really liked it. I just thought it was entertaining. This was one of those books that was just like very, I feel like maybe a little pretentious, but a part of me like low-key kind of likes it, so I kind of like this book. I thought it was fun. Then I read The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. I gave it 3 stars. This book was a little disappointing because I've been wanting to read it for a while, and I read it, but I don't know, I guess I just couldn't connect to the characters as much. I like the atmospheric vibes of the book because it follows like these 2 exes who are on like a fruit and wine tour together, so you're getting lots of beautiful descriptions of scenery, of food, of the drinks, which I loved. But it was definitely like pretty spicy, and I don't know, like I think I like the atmospheric vibe of it, but the romance itself I didn't really love. And so I gave it 3 stars, just a little disappointing. Then I read Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I also gave this 3 stars. I wanted to read this one because I wanted to read One Golden Summer, which I didn't end up reading because I know those 2 are companion novels, and Every Summer After came first. I thought the book was good. I liked the romance. I just found it a bit boring, so I gave it 3 stars. And I do want to read One Golden Summer because, to be honest, I just think the cover of that book is beautiful. but I hope it's a little more fun and engaging than Every Summer After. And then I read Passion Project by London Sperry. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I really, really love this book. And I think part of why I loved it too is that I felt like I could really, really connect to our female main character. She's going through pretty severe mental health issues in this book. She's lost her spark, but she meets this guy who takes her around New York City and helps her find like fun things and helps her find her passion and things that she loves to do. And so I just found the romance so wholesome, so sweet. I love the New York City vibes, and I really could relate to our female main character, and so I love this book. I thought it was so amazing, and I definitely recommend everyone read. Then I read / listened to, maybe, or I think I read it, Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood. Just a short video game novella. I gave it 3 stars. I don't think it was anything groundbreaking or fantastic, but I just think for a short romance read, I think it did the job that it was supposed to do. Then I read Summer in the City by Alex Astor, and I gave this one 4 stars. I really, really like this book. It's a billionaire romance. I loved her female main character. Again, I love the New York City vibes. It's about like our female main character who's like a screenplay writer, and it is kind of enemies to lovers because she's writing this movie that's supposed to take place in New York City. So she wants to go to like all the different locations, you know, to scout out locations and stuff that she's going to be writing about in the screenplay. And she agrees to, like, I think it was like fake date this billionaire so he could look good for his shareholders or whatever. But I really, really liked it. I read some of Alex Astor's fantasy and I didn't love it, so I was a little bit nervous to read this one, but I love the cover and the New York City vibe, so I decided to read it, and I'm glad I did. It was really good. 4 stars. And then the last book that I read in August was Worst Wingman Ever by Abby Jimenez, and again, just another cute romance novella. 4 stars. I have nothing really much to say about it. I just thought it was cute and got the job done. So let's get into the books I read in September. In September, the first book that I finished was The Summer We Ran. I wanted to read this book because I thought the cover was beautiful, but I gave it like 3 stars. I didn't love it. It's kind of like childhood friends to lovers, but they're both running for governor on opposing political parties, and they both are already married and in their own relationships. I just couldn't really root for the romance. I thought the book was like fine. I think I had higher expectations for it that it didn't meet. And then I read Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, a very anticipated read of the year. I gave it 5 stars. The story was beautiful. I cried. I absolutely adore the female main character, Joan, in that book. She's just genuinely such a good person, and I loved her. And so I think everyone should read that book. It was beautiful. Then I listened to The Tenant by Frida McFadden. I gave this book 4 stars. Again, just another cute audio, or I gave it 3 stars, sorry. Again, just another like funny audiobook to listen to, just to like, you know, I guess add to my reading goal, and I just wanted something to listen, like an audiobook to listen to. So of course I picked Frida McFadden. You know, and she didn't do me wrong. This book, again, was weird, twisty, I guess. You know, she removes the brains of all of her characters, but that's part of just what makes it fun to read. So that was The Tenant. And then I read Perfect Fit. I gave this book 3.25 stars. This book was a little bit of a disappointment. I wanted to read it because this author wrote Love Interest, which is a book I read last year, and I loved it, so I thought I was gonna love this one, but it wasn't my favorite. This is a romance. It's about this like business owner, and it's like enemies to lovers, I think, because I honestly can't even remember who our male main character was. I think he was like a shareholder or like a consultant for her company or whatever, and so you're kind of following their relationship, but it was just a little boring to me. I just couldn't really get into it. It took me a while to get through. And then I read Semi Well Adjusted Despite Literally Everything by Alison Stoner. No rating. This is her memoir. I found it fascinating, just like reading about the child stars and just her upbringing and just how, of course, manipulative and exploitative it is. I appreciate her commentary on the topic, and so again, if you're just interested in celebrity and entertainment memoirs, definitely check that one out. And then the last book that I read in September was A Surrogate Mother by Frida McFadden, another audiobook. This one I actually thought was pretty interesting because it's about like this couple who's trying to get pregnant, but they need a surrogate, and so but the surrogate is kind of crazy, so you're kind of following that whole dynamic, but it was really, really fun and super entertaining to read. And then getting into October, I read What Happened to Kellan Rochester. I just found this like mystery on Kindle Unlimited, and it was by the same author as Perfect Fit. So I was like, okay, I didn't love Perfect Fit. Let me see if I like this mystery. And I liked it. It's basically about this like girl who is on a college campus, and she's just like investigating the murder of like one of the college students. Very entertaining, just like fun, nothing crazy, but interesting read. Then I listened to 107 Days by Kamala Harris, and I don't know, like this book was just one of those books that like I wanted to read it the moment I heard it was coming out. It was very, very good. It basically just details her campaign as she was running for president. Still not over that loss, but it's okay. It is what it is, but I appreciate her kind of pulling back the curtain a little bit as to like what it was like when she found out that like Joe Biden dropped out, and you know, everything that kind of happened when she was the nominee, and her trying to put this campaign together and trying to do the best that she can. And so I just found it very interesting, especially as someone who was like critical of how her campaign was run, because I wanted her to win. I just don't know if like the way the campaign was run was set up for her to happen. So it was very interesting getting kind of like an insider information as to a little bit of the details as to how her whole campaign came about. Oh, okay. And then I read Come and Get It by Kylie Reed. I gave this 2.75 stars. This book was a disappointment because I read Such a Fun Age by this author a few years ago and I loved it. And so I thought I would love this one, but I didn't. It's weird. I read the book. I didn't really get the point of it. It's basically about this college student who kind of gets into a relationship with the professor. It's just very, very strange. I didn't love it. The book ended and I was just like, what was the point? Like, I don't know. Then I read 11/22/63 by Stephen King. It was my first Stephen King book. This is about a man who has to go back in time to stop the JFK assassination. I found the book so interesting and so fascinating. I loved it. It's very, very long, but it's super engaging, and I feel like even if you're not really a fan of historical fiction, you're really, really gonna like that book. Then I listened to Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I gave it 3.5 stars. I just don't think I found it as interesting as I thought I was going to. People said the audio was really good, and I enjoyed the audio. I just don't think I found it as interesting as I thought. But I appreciate John Green's commentary on the topic and, you know, medical racism and health disparities as well. Then I read The Business of Being Me by Issa Rae. This was just like a short Kindle Unlimited novella by Issa Rae. I love her. I loved her in Insecure. I loved her in, I loved how she produced like One of Them Days. I think she's so funny. And so again, I was just looking for something like short to read, and so I just decided to read her novel. Just a little self-help, just little bits of advice. It's like a little series that she did with Amazon, and so I thought it was cool. No rating, really. I just thought it was like a cool thing to read. Then I listened to This Kind of Love by Kyra and Kaylin Edwards. Kyra is actually like is like a YouTuber, and she runs the book club that I'm a part of, and so this is a book that her and her husband wrote detailing their relationship, and I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was really good. I think it was cool hearing both of their stories and how they like came to be a couple, and I think it was really cool that they really didn't shy away from like a lot of the struggles that they faced, stuff that I was like surprised to hear about. And I think it was cool because I think when you especially look at a lot of internet couples, like you think everything is like perfect, but just hearing how like their journey wasn't always perfect and seeing where they are now, definitely very inspiring. And then the last book that I read in October was The House on Mango Street. I did not like this book at all. I gave it 1 star. I just don't think I was a target audience for it. I didn't really get it. I feel like this is one of those books that like I always heard about in school, but I never read it. I know this is required reading for a lot of schools. And one of the girls in my book club really liked it, so I read it. It just wasn't for me. I found it boring. I just read it just to read it because I already bought it. But yeah, I didn't really like that book very much at all, unfortunately. Let's get into November. We're almost done through the year. November was actually a pretty good reading month. The first book that I read in November was Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. I really enjoy Holly Jackson's books. This is literally about a young woman who gets attacked. I think it was on Halloween, and she found out she has a week left to live, so she takes that week to find out who attacked her and who essentially murdered her. And so definitely very, very interesting. It literally takes place over the course of like a week. There's like a little subplot of romance, which it was a little interesting because I'm like, how's that gonna work? But it was definitely very, very sad. Of course, you kind of already know what's gonna happen, but you're kind of hoping for a different outcome. But definitely a very interesting premise for a novel. I don't think I've heard anything like that before, so it was definitely really fun to read. I gave it 4 stars. And then I read Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. I really have been wanting to read this book for a long time. It's basically about this African-American nurse who is told by, like, she's a labor and delivery nurse, and she's told by her supervisor that this baby has parents who are white supremacists and they don't want her touching her baby. But when she's in like the baby nursery in the hospital, the baby starts going into cardiac arrest and she hesitates before performing CPR, and that basically like starts this whole insane legal battle, and you're kind of following like her journey, like just navigating through all of that, and her relationship with like her son and her lawyer, who's a white woman, who's like trying to understand like her perspective and where she's coming from. This book was heartbreaking, but it was so good, and I definitely think it's a book that everyone should read. Then I listened to Toxic Empathy by Allie Beth Stuckey. One of the girls in our book club read it, and so I was like, let me listen to it. I don't really agree with Allie Beth Stuckey in pretty much anything. I think the only thing that I could really understand like her perspective on was when she was talking about abortion, because I do understand where she's coming from in her stance, even if I may have come to a different conclusion. But I think I read this book just to kind of just, I guess, just hear a different perspective than one that I'm usually used to. And I also think it's important to kind of just hear like people who have a different opinion than you, hearing like how they think and how they may have reached their own beliefs. And so I gave it 3 stars. I don't think it was bad. I didn't agree, you know, with a lot of what she said about the book, and certain things that she said, I'm just like, like, Allie, like, oh my god, like, I can't believe that you said that. But I think it was fine. And then I read The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This book was actually a little bit of a disappointment. I gave it 3 stars, and everyone talks about this book and how it's like their favorite Kristen Hanna book. This book takes place in World War II, and you're basically following 2 sisters as they live in Nazi-occupied France, and they both have different approaches to the war. One wants to kind of like lay low, and the other wants to like fight the Nazis. I don't know what it was. I hate to say that this book was boring. I just couldn't really connect to it like the way I thought it was gonna be. It's definitely not my favorite Kristen Hanna. It wasn't as good as I thought. I think this one was like the least engaging out of all of her novels. Definitely an important story to tell, and the events that happened in the book were devastating. I don't know. For some reason, I just couldn't really connect to it as much as I did her other books. And then I listened to The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. I gave it 4 stars. It's literally just like John Green reviewing a bunch of like random stuff and like our pop culture and like our culture here in America. So I found it to be super interesting. Like, I liked it. I think, yeah, they were just so random, and I just think really funny to hear his like insights on like little stories and vignettes on like very random topics. So I think it was like a fun nonfiction for anyone to pick up if they're kind of looking for like a nonfiction quick like audiobook to listen to. I would definitely recommend that one. And then I read The Academy by Ellen Hildebrand and Shelby Cunningham. I really love this book. I gave it 5 stars. It's literally about like all the drama that happens at this boarding school. You're following the students, the teachers, and basically there's like this new app who's like exposing a bunch of the people on campus, and you're trying to figure out who it is. So there's like a mystery element to it too. I loved it. I ate it up. It was so fast paced. It was so amazing. I'm so happy that there's a second book coming out. It was incredible. Amazing. Then I listened to Becoming Free Indeed by Ginger Duggar Volo. I gave it 3 stars. I put off reading this book for a while because I knew what it was about. I knew it was about like Ginger's journey of like figuring out what she believes in regards to Christianity and kind of dropping a lot of the beliefs that she grew up with. I knew it wasn't a memoir, but I guess I wish, like, I feel like she criticizes more of like the religion that she grew up with and then talks about her beliefs now. But I guess I do wish that it was a little more personal, in the sense of like, okay, like, but what did your personal journey look like, as to like the step by step of like, oh, I started to question this and then I started to question that and then I went through this whole thing. And I mean, she does talk about it, but I don't know, I guess I just wish she went into a little bit more depth as far as that goes. And I respect her for not wanting to like criticize her parents. I know she still has a great relationship with them, but I do think it's okay to be critical, you know, like of things that need to be criticized. And I do think she maybe shied away from like giving more commentary, blunt commentary, than she could have. So I gave it 3 stars. And I read The Mad Wife. This was a new release. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was our book club book pick. It basically follows this woman who is like in the 1950s. She's a housewife, she's a mom, and but this is not like the life that she envisioned for herself. And she, like, long story short, a lot of events start happening. She gets obsessed with the neighbor across the street. And so I don't want to spoil anything, but it's kind of like, I guess, marketed as like a psychological thriller. I will say though, I think the twist that happened in this book wasn't as much of a surprise to me, because I watched like another movie earlier in the year that had a similar twist. So when I read it, I was like, oh. I guess because when I watched the movie and that twist happened, it was such a big shock. So I didn't guess what the twist was, but I guess when it happened, because I'd already seen something with that same twist before, I guess it didn't hit as hard. So I gave it 3.5 stars, but I thought the commentary and the discussions that we had about the book were really, really good. And so I think if you're kind of interested in like those kind of novels about, like, it's like historical fiction, psychological thriller, I think you'll enjoy it. And then the last book that I read in November was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is a reread, and I wanted to reread it because I actually forgot a lot about what happened in this book. I gave it like 5 stars years ago when I read it, and I gave it 5 stars again. It was really, really good. Just a super fun STEM rom-com, and I'm so excited for the movie to come out. And finally, let's talk about the books that I read in December. The first book that I read in December was Counting the Cost by Jo Dillard. I actually read this book before, so this was just a reread. I think I was just like behind on my reading goal, and I didn't really know what audiobooks to listen to. And so I was like, well, let me just like re-listen to audiobooks that I already have listened to before and I liked. And again, I really like this memoir. I watched like 19 Kids and Counting on for years, and so I'm very familiar with like her family and just like all the stuff that's like happened and all the scandals, and just seeing how it's affected her. It's like really heartbreaking, but I'm proud of her for like telling her story. And then I listened to The Hope We Hold, which is Ginger Volo's book with her husband Jeremy, and it's like a memoir for both of them. They both follow their childhoods and kind of how their relationship came to be. Definitely not smooth sailing. And again, I listened to this before, so I re-listened to it again, and it was still super interesting. And I think even when I listened to it the first time, like watching their relationship on the show, and I'm like, I have no idea how like just how much was behind the scenes that went behind them like getting together. So it was like kind of crazy, but again, super, super interesting. And then I read One to Watch. This was a romance that I've had on my radar for a really long time, but I gave it 2.5 stars. It was kind of a disappointment. It basically follows this plus size like fashion influencer who gets cast as the lead in like a reality TV dating show, so think The Bachelor. But you're kind of following her journey through the show. But I don't know, I didn't really like our female main character. I found the book kind of boring, couldn't really connect to like any of her relationships really. So this book, it was definitely a disappointment, because I'd been wanting to read it for a really long time, but I just didn't really love it at all. And then I listened to The Housemaid because of the movie that came out, which I still haven't watched, but like I wanted to watch the movie, so I'm like, okay, all of the Frida books that I've listened to, and I've never listened to The Housemaid, and I know that's like such a classic novel of hers, so I listened to it and I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really good. I thought the twist was good. Literally the book synopsis is in the name. It follows a housemaid who becomes like a maid and a cook for like this rich husband and wife, and so I thought it was really fun and really interesting to read, and knowing that I like the book, I'm excited to watch the movie. Then did I listen to it or read it? I think I read it. Cruel Winter with You by was this Ali Hazelwood? I think so. I think it was, but I liked it. Again, a cute Christmas novella. Like, what more could you ask for? You can't really ask for anything more than that. And so, yeah, just another one of those books that like I really enjoyed reading. Just a little quick read to help hit my reading goal. And then I read I Almost Know What I'm Doing. This was another one of the Issa Rae novellas that I talked about earlier. She wrote a couple of them for Amazon, and so I just read this one. Again, I just think she's really funny in her storytelling, so just was definitely just like an entertaining read. And then I listened to The Housemaid's Secret. I don't remember what I gave this one. I think I gave it like 3 stars. It was fine. I didn't love it as much as The Housemaid, and I don't know if I'm going to read The Housemaid is Watching, because The Housemaid's Secret, it was fine. It was just fine. Like, I feel like that's all I can really say about it. It was just fine. You're still following the maid from the first Housemaid series, but she ends up in like a whole other situation, but the twist of that was good too. But it was just fine. And then I read Best Offer Wins, which this book was fantastic. My favorite book I read in December. This was a new release, and I just found the premise so intriguing. It's basically about this woman. She has a husband, but they've been hunting for a house and they have had no luck, and she finally finds the perfect house for sale. So she kind of goes a little bit insane at doing whatever it is that she needs to do to get that house. Like, insane. Like, she is insane, but I love it. I just love reading about insane like female characters. Like, she is crazy. The lengths she goes to is insanity, but it's fantastic. Like, I loved it. So entertaining, so funny. I don't even know if I would call it, I feel like it's marketed as a thriller. I don't even know if I would call it a thriller. It's just like, I feel like general fiction. Like, I don't know if insane fiction is a genre, but it was just insane, and I absolutely loved it. So entertaining, such a fast-paced read. I listened to most of it on audio, and the audio is fantastic, so I would highly recommend the audio. Then I read Throne of Glass, again, like my Throne of Glass reread. The book was amazing. It was still so good as I remember. So interesting, and I'm excited to read through the rest of the series. Of course, we're following our main character who is in a competition to become a king's assassin, and so you're just like following that journey as to like how she ended up there and her whole journey through like the competitions and everything. Very good. And I gave Throne of Glass 4.5 stars. Then I read Wild Dark Shore. I think I gave it like 3 stars. It was fine. Why did I even give it 3 stars? Like, I honestly think I would give it like 2. This book was so hyped, and so I wanted to read it because of how hyped up it was, but I don't know, like, I just found it a bit boring. And then, like, basically the whole premise of this book is that there's this family that lives on this really remote island, but then one day a woman washes up to the shore, and you're trying to figure out how she ended up there, and like what the family is exactly doing on this island. But I feel like you find that out like so early on in the book, so then the rest of the book is like, okay, like what are we doing? And there's still like a little twist or part that hasn't been figured out, but it wasn't even that, I don't know, for me it wasn't even that interesting. And I think people like the atmospheric vibes of the book. To be honest, maybe it was just the way it was written, but I didn't love it. Like, I just found it to be a bit boring, and so it was definitely a little bit of a disappointing read because it was so hyped, but I didn't really like it very much. And then I read Love on the Brain. I just, after like while reading Wild Dark Shore, I just wanted something fun to read. I read Love on the Brain years ago. It's my favorite Ali Hazelwood book. I gave it 5 stars. I think that book is amazing, and it makes me sad at how underrated this book is, because when people talk about Ali Hazelwood, I see so many people skip over Love on the Brain, and to me that's her best one. Like, I think that book is amazing. I would read it all over again, like, and I just reread it. It was so good. It's so good. Like, our female main character, I wanted to slap her so many times over how stupid she was being, and just like the assumptions that she was making, and like her total lack of communication skills. But I loved it. It was really, really good. And then the last book that I read in December, the last book of 2025, was Her One Regret. This is like a mystery. I audiobooked most of it. And I thought it was good. Like, I thought it gave very interesting commentary on motherhood. It's basically about this mother that goes missing, and her best friend tries to help find her, but her best friend knows that, like, her friend said that she regrets being a mother, so she wonders, like, if she staged her own kidnapping. And so you find out, like, what happened. There is a little bit of a twist that did get me. I wouldn't say this was, like, the most engaging book of all time. I think it was just, like, interesting to listen to, and I think I read the book more for its commentary on motherhood than anything else, because that's just a topic that I'm very interested in, with how much motherhood and pregnancy and all of that is glamorized in our society. And as someone who sometimes gets on the fence about like wanting kids, it was just like really cool and interesting to hear like how that topic was explored, especially with like societal expectations and everything in this book. I thought it was really, really, yeah, I just thought it was really, really interesting. And I think if you like that topic, I think you would appreciate this book as well. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was pretty good, and it was like a good way to end off the year. I'm glad I didn't end off the year with like a bad book, you know. So those were all the books that I read in 2025. If you watched this whole thing, thank you. I hope you got some book inspiration. I hope to post more on this channel this year, so we will see how that goes. But yes, I hope you enjoyed the first video of 2026. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I read, if you find any of them interesting, and I will see you guys in my next video. Okay, bye guys.